Hello everyone. It's Charmaine Hammond, and here we are again today with one of the Building Global Influence Masterclasses. I'm really excited for today's because we're going to kind of pull back the curtains, so to speak, and look at some of the marketing mistakes I've made. One of the things I'm enjoying about these webinars is I get to be kind of the topic of conversation in that I can talk about some of my epic failures and epic wins. Today's guest, we've got Christy Thom. Now, I'm going to share a little bit about Christy, and then I'm also going to have Christy introduce herself. I brought Christy on to this webinar series, the Masterclass series, because the Global Influence Summit, of course, is all about helping people build their influence. And part of what we've been learning is that in order to build your influence and be globally recognized and respected as an expert, you have to be so clear on your brand. And that was a big learning for me. But you also have to be so clear on the message that you're putting out there in the world and who is the audience that you're trying to market to. If you can't do that, it becomes so difficult to get sponsorship. Now, Christy Thom actually is our marketing director with Hammond International and Team Toby. And I met Christy a few years ago, and I met Christy in the realm of the business we have, all about our dog Toby. Now, some of you have heard the story of Toby, some of you have read the book, some of you have met Toby, and of course he's an awesome dog. And I know Christy's going to say her dog is equally as awesome in a minute. But I met Christy because we were having a huge challenge in our company, actually sort of getting clarity on my brand, because in my real world, I call it my real world, in my primary world, I'm a speaker, author, facilitator, and I work corporately. So I talk about leadership, conflict resolution, and team building. And that's a really clear brand for me. I've been doing that since I opened my business 20 years ago. But when we brought in the business to do with Toby, based on my books and my speaking engagements that include our dog, that started to make the waters a little bit muddy. And I even had a hard time explaining how this brand met with that brand. That's why we hired Christy and brought her in. That was, I don't know, 3 years ago. We've just stopped counting time. And Christy has helped us with our kindness tours, our launches, and it's been phenomenal. She works hand in hand as well with Julie. You've heard me mention Julie Angeletti, who is our events coordinator and marketing team member as well. And together, they've been able to create some real magic for our company. So Christy Thom is a marketing expert, and I always say to her, she should insure her brain because her creativity is on steroids. Let me tell you, she can take a really complex problem and turn a really simple solution around it. And that's really important when we're looking at marketing and sponsorship. So welcome to today's conversation, the Masterclass, Christy.
Thank you so much, Charmaine. I'm so happy to be here and joining you today. I'm absolutely a huge fan of knowledge sharing. So doing this and being a part of your Masterclass is actually a true honor, and I've loved working with Hammond International and Team Toby. I think it's been 3 years, and we have stopped counting. Just to share a little bit of how, kind of going back to that, how we even came to meet, and the insuring my brain. I've actually participated in marketing and so many different organizations, and from my start in special events to gaming. I lived in Las Vegas, Nevada for 20 years, so I've been a part of marketing teams in very big casinos, from Bally's to Riviera to Four Queens and Aladdin. And then it was about 2005, and I was ready to be the entrepreneur because I'm a horrible employee, let's just be honest. So I was really ready to do, kind of take my shot at making something out of nothing. And that started with publishing Vintage Fuel magazine. So, take gaming and then mix that with my personal life and love of motorsports, and we started covering the world of nostalgia drag racing.
Wow.
That parlayed into actually building sponsorships. I mean, that is really when I started. And it just from there turned into marketing consulting, and I met great people along the way. I've consulted for car washes and authors and casinos and dog daycares, which is part of my role today, as I'm a master franchisee with Dogtopia Orange County, and that's really helping people get into business in in a more secure fashion. You don't have to create something from nothing, but you can be an entrepreneur and work for yourself. And that ties in really with Team Toby, and yes, my dog Tucker is, yeah, you know what, he's just supermodel. He's sassy. Not very well behaved right now, but he's sassy.
Well, I know we have lots of dog lovers on the masterclass today as well, and some cat lovers. Now, if you're joining us on the web platform, type in the chat box where you're from. Let us know who you are, what inspired you to participate on today's masterclass. If you've got questions, you can type your questions up in the chat box, and I will get to them. And Christy, if I'm seeing questions coming in, I'm just going to interrupt or not let you finish, and then I'll interject with some questions so we can get through those today. And I also have some questions from some people who couldn't be here live, and they secretly emailed me and asked me if they would if I would ask the questions so that when they listen to the replay they'd hear the answer, and I'll definitely do that. So if you're in the room, you can type in the chat box, let us know who you are, where you're from. And one of the questions I wanted to start with, Christy, is this whole concept of when we think about our brand and we think about marketing. Can you maybe actually share a little bit about one of the challenges I think lots of entrepreneurs have, lots of speakers, authors, coaches have this challenge, is getting super crystal clear on their brand. And that was, a big part of the reason that we brought you in to help, is that I was struggling to clarify what our brand was and how I connect these two very, very different business models. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So we actually, creating a brand, it's very interesting because it's more difficult than rocket science, let's put it that way. It is challenging because so often as an entrepreneur, the first thing that we're thinking of is, okay, I've got a product. And we're also thinking about, I need to make a living. I need to put food on the table. So we get lost in sort of the functions, and we lose the value, we lose the soul of it. So what I like to do is walk entrepreneurs through a bullseye, which we created, to really help narrow in on what do you want to be when you grow up. And that's actually how I start the conversation, is what do you imagine yourself doing? What does it look like during a day? How do you want to make money? If you could wake up in the morning and do whatever it is that you wanted and somebody would pay you for it, what does that look like? And then we go from there and we really start to define it and hone in on almost what you should be doing every day then to get to that end goal. So the bullseye, what it does is it helps you understand what your skill set is, what your values are, and then how to turn that into a product and then connect with other people that are like-minded. So something I use quite often, and you and I worked with a client directly to really help her identify her brand, is if you're somebody that's passionate about yoga and you're passionate about organic food and you're passionate about the outdoors, then you're not going to be in a glass and chrome, high-powered suit working with attorneys, because that's not what they're passionate about. So if you don't know your brand, how do you know how to connect with the right clients, the right partners, and especially the right sponsors? Yes. A brand of, let's say, somebody who's really involved in yoga, don't go to CrossFit to look for sponsorship. They're not interested in yoga. So we start at the core, and it's a conversation. And the bullseye tool really helps you narrow in on what it is that you're doing. What is your business doing? And then defining that brand from it.
Yeah, that was so in our business, that was such a helpful tool, Christy, because part of the other challenges we were having, and I know people that are listening to this that are speakers can also relate. What are the speaking opportunities you say yes to, and what are the speaking opportunities that we've just let pass by? One of the terms I love, Tanya Hoffman from the Public Speaker Association was on our masterclass series in November, and she talked about investment speaking, where a lot of times speakers will speak for no fee, of course, because it's a real marketing opportunity. it's the right audience. And I was sharing with Tanya that I said yes to some of those investment speaking opportunities that were completely the wrong audience for me, and it did nothing, of course, to generate business, but I was coming from it the angle of this is an opportunity, I can promote myself and market myself, but if it's not the right audience, it really isn't a marketing exercise. And so when you brought in the bullseye, you helped me understand, what are our primary core revenue functions of the company. So for us, it's speaking and books and products and mentoring programs. And then who are the audiences that we're going to serve in each of those, which is where you and Julie started to then market out for us. And then it became really easy for me, and even for Julie, as she was calling speaking organizations to connect with them about opportunities, it became very easy for us to say, this is a good one, this one's not a great fit, and we'll pass that off to somebody else. So I've been able to use that tool you shared with us so many times, Christy.
I'm so glad to hear that as well. And something that is funny is that you and I have talked about this so many times is I think entrepreneurs can drown in opportunity. And you just get so overwhelmed, and especially when the business is young or the business is going through a change, and you're just really looking to, how do I bring more profit in? How do I get cash in the door? And you see these different opportunities, and you get excited about them, and then realize that you'll go down a rabbit hole and have lost so much time because you got off of the true goal and you disconnected from your values and you matched your brand to a company that doesn't match you. It's something that you and I have talked about so many times is I am pretty blunt, really straightforward. There's not a whole lot of cooiness about me. I'm not somebody that would do a speaking engagement and get the audience to cry. Most often I'll probably have them angry at me. But you, on the other hand, you can really connect with people emotionally. So it's knowing that difference, knowing your style, knowing your values. It's so, so important. And I know it can be difficult to determine those things when we're just so focused on, well, this is my product, everyone should want my product. Well, not everybody does, so find the ones that do and sell it to them.
Yeah, love that. I just want to read some comments here. We've got Kelly from Seattle, and she says, I'm a newbie starting out as an entrepreneur. We all have started at some point, so welcome to the world of entrepreneurship, my friend. And we have
welcome.
And actually, if it's the Callie I think about, if I'm thinking it's this Callie, this might just be the Callie that you'll be able to meet in San Diego, Christy. I think this, if it's the same Callie, she's coming out to San Diego for the Global Influence Summit. And we have Kelly from Connecticut. Hey, welcome, Kelly. And Debbie from Virginia, who says, my volunteer role with a national nonprofit is to acquire national sponsorships. Oh, you're in the right place, because some of the information we're going to share today is really important. So, Christy, whether entrepreneurs are just starting out or they've been at it for a while, I've had my business 20 years, you've been in business for a long time, the learning curve is always there. I mean, that's one thing I've learned. We're always going to be learning. What do you think is really important for people as they start to think about marketing and as they start to think about sponsorship? Whether that be in-kind sponsorship where they are getting products or services or other forms of support donated to them, or a deeply discounted price, or if they're starting to look at something like cash sponsorship. Where do people even start? Because I think the starting point, like you said, we can get so wrapped up, especially the creators on the webinar. For those of you that are like me and we create stuff, we're really good at starting. Then we hire people like Julie and Christy who are really good at putting it into action. Where would a person start? We're just starting to learn about sponsorship. What do you even do first?
So the first thing is, and I'll just really beat this one until it's glue, is that you need to know what your brand is. So, okay. So our webinar participant that is responsible for getting sponsorship for a not-for-profit. What is the brand of the not-for-profit? There are not-for-profits that, their brand is definitely focused in fitness. There's others that their brand is focused in health, mental health, and wellness. So really understanding the brand. Then you want to research. I'm a big fan of research. You want to start researching who's already connected to you. So if you have let's say it's your members or your donors. where do they work? Do they own businesses? What are their businesses doing? What businesses supply to you? So do you get paper from somebody? Do you have computer support from someone? I always like to start at home. Who am I using? What relationships do I have? Because number one, sponsorship is about relationships. I don't want anyone to, this may be a bubble burster, but sponsorship is advertising. There's not this great tax write-off. It's advertising, but it's advertising that comes from the heart. So when a company decides to sponsor, it's because it's something that is passionate to their values. So a company in the pet industry will typically sponsor an organization that saves pets' lives or improves pets' lives. They're not going to, let's say, jump out and do something in motorsports. There isn't a natural connection typically there. So you want to look for natural connections, and you really want to go with relationships that you already have in your network and brand out from there. And the way that I like to start it as well, because a lot of this people are considering it's selling. It is selling, but it's, if you listen, companies will tell you exactly what it is that they need to meet their advertising goals. So start with who's in your network right now. Start with researching what companies are like you. Were the values the same? When you find those companies, start researching what advertising they are doing. What are their sort of agendas and objectives? What have they participated with in the past? Then you want to start building a relationship. And building a relationship, it's like, you got to ask, hey, do you want to get together for coffee? And then we'll move on to dinner. And, don't expect somebody to move into you. If you haven't dated, they're probably not going to move in with you. So you got to start building a relationship, because bottom line is, it's humans that we're dealing with. Humans are making the decisions. It's not just a bank account that you're, like, hey, just open up your checkbook. You really need to connect with your decision makers and the business that they're running. And then I also want to really mention, make their life easier. Don't make it harder. When you're going to a company and you're asking them to be a part of your organization, you're asking them to support you in your mission, you want to make their life easier. How do you make it better for them? How are you going to help build their business while they're helping build yours?
Beautiful. I love that you talked about the whole relationship piece, because it's so critical. When I think about relationships, one of the things, actually, you listened to the webinar the other day that we did with Alex Mendoza, and we were talking about building relationship capital and how important relationship is in the whole business world, certainly in sponsorship, certainly in branding. And one of the questions that came up in the green room after the webinar is people were talking about, where do I start when I don't even have these relationships and I'm really starting fresh? And one of the things that I thought was brilliant that Alex said is that, and you're reinforcing this too, Christy, is that we all have relationships that we're already in. And part of what we can do is really leverage those relationships in a way that supports both parties. And the perfect example, I think, is when we were looking for an RV, a motorhome, for the Million Acts of Kindness tour. I mean, I'd never even been in one. So you had, Christy, I never had. And so where does one start? And the conversation with you, Julie, and I was, where do motorhome businesses hang out? And Julie found that just a week after we had had that conversation, that there was a motorhome trade show. Who knew? I didn't, because I didn't hang out in the motorhome world. And when we went to that trade show in Vancouver, Canada, it was phenomenal, because that's where we actually met Fraser Way RV, who later became our sponsor. And it took a while of building that relationship, really getting to know their business and their marketing needs and what message they were wanting to put out in the world. And there's also that process of building a relationship so that you can better support each other. They were phenomenal partners. I mean, we had this 32-foot decked out, wonderful motorhome that we traveled in. I did drive it for 3 hours total out of the 6-week trip, by the way. I just want to mention that. And I didn't do any turns. I just drove straight. And when it was time to turn, I let Chris take over. But But it was phenomenal, and it helped serve our mission. I mean, we had this big kindness mobile going on. But one of the other things I learned from working with Fraser Way RV is that not only do we have relationships with people, they have relationships with people. And we had that struggle of what are we going to do about all our data, all of our cell phone, how are we going to be online in the middle of nowhere? And it was Fraser Way RV who was able to look at their relationship with TELUS, who is our telecom provider, and they brought TELUS in to be part of our tour. And that was, for me, Christy, such powerful learning to remember that the people we're in relationship with also have powerful, deep relationships with other businesses too that they could bring on to support.
You know, something you do, it brings up something else that was really important, is that when we had conversations with Fraser Way, sometimes we get so caught up in selling and trying to get what we want that I think individuals oftentimes forget that they're better off to listen. Because again, Fraser Way literally told us exactly what they needed in order for us to close the deal. Right. And we listened. We did so much listening and then modifying and creating a plan that truly gave Fraser Way some powerful marketing. It got some social media content for them. And the fact that you had never driven a motorhome before was incredible video, because it showed them they can teach other people, hey, look, you can do it, get in our motorhome, rent it, and go on this great vacation. So we really have to think is what's our skill set and what can we bring to the table, and that's exactly what we did for Fraser Way. Is we became an outside marketing arm for them. I think you also even did video in showing, you know, how to cook on a camper sink and how to
empty
the waste tank.
And I had my high heels on. I mean, how Charmaine was that? Oh my gosh, we show up and we're going to do this video, and I've got my business clothes on with my high heels, so I'm touching all this stinky stuff. So it was hilarious.
It was so fun, and it was so natural and organic, and that's really important as well as when we think about what is our skill set and what do we bring to the table. I can tell people. Great story. Willow Jones, I don't know if you're familiar with her, but she's the hurdler.
Okay.
She's an American athlete, competed in the Olympics, and Olympic athletes, they are like broke students. They do not make money in order to compete in the games. So she decided, okay, I need to make some money if I want to keep doing this. She went out and saw who were the people that were making the most money, what value did they have? So she created a Twitter account, and she exposed herself intimately in the sense that she was very honest, and she showed what it was like to train as a hurdler. In a short period of time, she had hundreds of thousands of Twitter followers, and her brand became powerful, which then connected her with sponsors because people were following her and listening to her. It's thinking outside the box. How do you become a value to a potential partner? You know, where do companies struggle? Companies still struggle with social media content. There are so many social media websites out there, from Instagrams to Facebook to Tumblr and Pinterest. How can a company benefit by working with your organization? What are you going to bring to the table that they don't already have in-house? And I think it's thinking those things and thinking that way is what value do you bring to the table, and start slow. Don't expect to get married on the first date.
I love the dating analogy. It was so fun because last week we had Dr. Sean Duperrin, my media coach, and we were talking about media, and she was talking about the same kind of thing in media, that we've got to build that relationship in media and build that trust, and she used a dating analogy. So I love how this analogy of dating keeps coming up in the importance of relationship. You know, what's really interesting, and Jean says, it was fun taking photos of you guys at Fraser Way. Hi, Jean. And it was so fun having you there as our official photographer for the day. Jean's coming to San Diego Global Influence Summit as well. Yeah, it was when I think about the whole branding piece and the meeting sponsors and what we're talking about with relationship right now. And you mentioned something a minute ago, Christy, that's so important is that authenticity, letting the sponsors get to know you. And I think a lot of times, I just had a conversation with someone about a week ago about this. They're really excited to start looking at sponsors, and they're doing up that proposal. And I said, whoa, 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 wait a second, like you haven't actually even talked to them. You don't know what their priorities are. You need to hold off on that proposal until you have those conversations. And I know with our experience with the last 2 tours that we did, which were speaking and book tours, for those of you who are not aware of the Million Acts of Kindness tour, that we really, our proposals didn't go in until it was really already a yes. It was really a document that summarized who's going to do what, which is very different than when I was working in the nonprofit sector a whole lifetime ago, so 20 years ago. We just got into this pattern where we'd submit a proposal to everybody, and we'd hope that someone come through. And I've really learned, over the years that proposals shouldn't be going forward until those conversations have been built and the relationship has been established. Is that a fair statement?
It's a very fair statement. You know what? Truthfully, this is what I love to also use, and you and I have talked with clients as well about this. Nobody really wants to be sold to, right? Nobody wants it. It's just like when you get junk mail. You look at the junk mail, and if anything, a lot of times you're turned off by the company that invaded your space. I'm not going to go to a company that invaded my space. Now, that's the same thing with businesses and when you're soliciting funds, and that's what kind of sponsorship ends up being, is you're soliciting funds. I would really like for individuals to start thinking about it in a different way, because the vast majority of everyone that is fishing for sponsor dollars, they're doing it that method. It's an old method. Sometimes it works. It's a great deal of kind of shotgun type marketing, which to me, we don't have time to waste doing shotgun marketing. Make it specific and direct and build those relationships. It's a little bit scarier because, yes, you have to put yourself out there and you got to pick up that phone or walk in the door. But if you really build relationships, it's going to make your work a lot easier because, again, the company will tell you exactly what they need in order to close them. So instead of creating these grandiose proposals and, give me $100,000 because I need it, provide something that the company needs and they'll gladly give you $100,000.
Beautifully said. Woohoo! Now, here's a question that came in through a private email to me from someone who couldn't be on the masterclass today. It was a 2-part question. She has a volunteer job where she sits on a board of directors for a nonprofit, so she's part of a lot of fundraising and doing sponsorship. And then she also is an entrepreneur and has her own business. And she was wondering, how important is social media in the marketing world we live in today, and how important is social media when you start to think about looking for sponsors?
So that's really interesting. It's a great question, and I'm going to pause before I answer it. Anyone that is actually live on our chat today, ask questions. I love answering specifics. I love giving specifics. So if we can get specific questions in, I would love to answer them.
Perfect.
So to answer her question, it's a bit of a 2-part. Social media is it is a very strong presence in our life today. It's like when we went from radio to TV. It just is what it is. What I like to say is find 1 or 2 of the platforms and really specialize in it so that you build a meaningful presence. Social media is not a salesy tool. It is a communication tool that is designed to be organic, and if it's not organic, it will work against you. So at the very least, go with 2, specialize in it, and yes, it is very important because it does have a reach. What I like to really share with entrepreneurs, business owners, is that you don't necessarily have to look at how many friends you have or how many followers you have, but how engaged is it? If you have 200 solid followers that you're actually engaging with, then you have influence over them. Funny, we're talking about Global Influence Summit here. You actually have influence, and that's what's more important than just sheer numbers. So if you have influence over 200 people, 2,000 people, 200,000 people, that's what you're going for. So build it, use it, make it meaningful, and yes, it's important because then it does have value when you can influence people to make a decision. So in the nonprofit space, when you're building that relationship, nonprofits count on donations. The people that give donations are the ones that are connected to your values. If you have a meaningful relationship using social media, that can equal dollars. I wouldn't try to go down the path of so many, like having a presence on every single social media platform because you want to reach everyone, because it will drain you and it won't actually be meaningful.
Yeah, I learned that. Ooh, did I learn that? You know, for us, I can just share, and here's what I'd love for all of you that are on the web platform, tell us what social media platforms are working best for you in terms of getting your message out there, building relationships. Here's what we use, and trust me, I have tried all kinds of other platforms, and here's the deal for me. I don't have time to learn them, and I don't know if I want Julie to have time to learn 10 more new platforms. I want to do what Christy just said. Let's be really good at where the people we want to be in relationship with and our clients and our customers are. So we use Facebook, and I'll tell you right now, when you talked about influence and the value of engagement versus the numbers, Christy, that is so true, and I've seen that with the Global Influence Summit. We've created a Facebook event page, and I'll tell you, these people that are coming to the event or are thinking about coming to the event, the community that they have built on that Facebook page, getting to know each other, booking each other for radio shows, is phenomenal, and that kind of community is what people want to be a part of. We saw the same thing on our Million Acts of Kindness tour, that we would put a post out or a video out, and all of the people we're connected to would like it, share it, comment on it, do a video like the one we did of their version about something to do with kindness. And what happened is our sponsors were brought into that mix, of course, because people were tagging our sponsors, and they got brought into our circle of influencers, and I think that's where social media can be powerful. So we do Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. That's where my corporate people are on. My corporate clients are not on Facebook. They're not on Twitter. They're not on YouTube unless they're watching videos for training. We use YouTube. I use Instagram more for personal, really, than and Pinterest. I can't remember my password for that, so I don't use it anymore. Those are the platforms we're using, I think, with success. And we've got Jean, who says Facebook and Twitter. Debbie says Facebook and Twitter. Kelly says LinkedIn and Facebook. Callie has got a question here for you, Christy. If you have no platform, you're just starting out, so if you don't have that platform followings, any tips on finding and attracting the right people?
Yes. So let's start with the fact that Facebook is the 800-pound gorilla, and that's why it's funny because it's twofold. Because it's the 800-pound gorilla, there's a lot of noise. So standing out from the noise can be challenging, but starting on Facebook is really important. The way that I actually recommend that clients start building a platform is, one, where is your audience? So how you just said, your corporate audience, they're on LinkedIn. Instagram, it's very picture driven. So if I'm a photographer, I'm more likely to start out on Instagram than I would be to start out on Facebook. Really depends on where is your audience. If you don't know where your audience is, Google is your very best friend. Start researching, and I actually start researching. So let's say I'm a painter, I'm an artist. I'm going to start typing in artist communities, and what happens is Google will give you in the results pages where artist discussions are. So you may find there's a lot of artist discussions happening on Pinterest. If and you look on Pinterest, then you start an account there. And the way to build on social media is to start interacting with other people that are already there. that's how it's like spider webs. So I start with a Pinterest account. I have 0 followers, right? I then start looking on Pinterest, where is the subject matter I want to talk about? What's most like me? Putting up information and engaging people. If you get 1 like or 1 person that shows interest, show gratitude, thank them, ask them, hey, what did you like about my painting or my photography? If I don't know, I'm trying to think of other reasons to use LinkedIn or, the others. Twitter is very political, it's social, it's celebrity, it's, kind of like public figures. So again, it's really, where's your audience? And that's where I would start.
Perfect. I'm just going to mention something on Twitter that we learned the other day. I was talking when we interviewed Sean Duperrin for the masterclass, who's a media expert. I was sharing with Sean. I learned to write press releases through Sean, and I was sharing that when we did our last two tours, speaking and book tours, most of our media that we secured, so that was TV and radio and print, we actually secured through Twitter. I would go on and put a post, something like, hey, Fort McMurray, we're in your community, and then I put the date, and then I tag at Fort McMurray Today, at Fort McMurray Connect, at Chaos 91.1 Radio. And you would be, I was blown away that night. That one night I tagged 3 media outlets, all of them. So someone in their company is on Twitter in the middle of the night on radio, and we had 2 radio interviews booked right through Twitter, and then the next day the 2 print companies for newspapers responded back, emailed me, the publisher, or texted me, or what do you call it, private message, the publisher's direct email, and the news desk direct email, so we could actually secure the media, which was phenomenal. So Twitter, now that doesn't happen on Facebook. I don't get that same result when I use that on Facebook.
And Facebook is a lot more limited as well on tagging people and linking that way. There a lot of and there's a lot on the social media sides is that they do want you advertising. They've grown to a level that in order for you to leverage their sort of user database, they want you to advertise, so they start making it more difficult. The other thing is Google Plus. Here's a part of social media that I don't think maybe all entrepreneurs or business owners or even social media users are understanding, is that social media actually has a really strong value search engine optimization wise. So if you have a website, so like the question that we got earlier, if you are starting out on a platform and you have absolutely 0, you're starting from scratch, you also want to know, what do you want social media to do for you? Are you just looking to engage with people and talk to them, or are you looking to drive traffic to a website or a phone number? So when you are starting to build that, looking at the social media platforms that have greater search engine influence is really important. So Google Plus is obviously a natural for search engine optimization, because Google values its own users higher than users that are going somewhere else. So I would definitely say for authors and writers, the Google Plus gives you that platform to actually write and share a lot of information and then get people back to a blog. So it kind of depends if you, it's sort of back to that bullseye, right?
Yeah.
What is the purpose of going on social media? And then that's kind of the direction you take. So if your purpose is to talk to people, Facebook's a great one. If your purpose is to get media interested in you, Twitter's really the way to go. If your interest is in people to hire you for consultations, LinkedIn is a powerful one. So it's knowing the purpose of it as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I think what's really important too with social media and how we've used social media as a marketing tool and also as a connecting tool. LinkedIn, while I use that so much for my corporate work, what I also know is that when we started looking at sponsors, they went to our website, but we actually had a number of sponsors that went to my LinkedIn profile before they went to the website, which was really interesting. They wanted to see how we were conversing with other professionals in that professional world. on LinkedIn, of course, you can have all those recommendations, and they were reading things like that. So I think it's so important to have a LinkedIn profile that's updated and professional. If you want to see an awesome LinkedIn profile, folks, we had Laura Rubenstein on last week, who is speaking at the Global Influence Summit. She is my social media role model for LinkedIn, and we modeled my LinkedIn that actually gets me paid speaking engagements. My LinkedIn actually is a really powerful tool, and we modeled what Laura Rubenstein is doing. So Laura, I'm out here good gossiping about you because what you taught is really, really working. And that's the other piece I would add, is that we want to go on and follow people and connect with people who are doing things that we love. Like, there are so many transformational leaders in my world that I just so appreciate. Jack Canfield is one of them, and he has been my mentor for many years. I love watching what he does and how he engages people, because he has hundreds of thousands of people engaging with him. And so what is it that I can learn from what Jack does? Or what is it that I can learn from Natalie Ledwell, who we had on a couple of weeks ago? She talked about going from not knowing anything about the internet. She didn't even know what YouTube was, she said, and now her videos are reaching millions and millions of people around the world. So, you know, looking at what people are doing and being able to support them and be a champion for them, get in relationships with them, I think can really help. Now, Christy, I wanted to ask you, this was a question that came up before the master class, and they wanted me to address this, and this is probably a question for some of you that are on with us today as well. What are some of the marketing strategies you think in today's world are really working well? And I know it's a tough question, because every industry, how you market in the pet industry is so different than how an author of a business book might market. But can you give us some innovative ideas of things that you've done with your businesses and your clients' businesses to market their products or services?
That is a tough one. I would say let's do Team Toby.
Okay.
We've done, with the Million Acts of Kindness, we created a marketing campaign that was designed to really also promote Charmaine Hammond, and Charmaine Hammond as a speaker, and Charmaine Hammond as somebody that can teach leadership and communication and kindness and respect in the workplace. So we created a marketing campaign that was Charmaine and Toby and Chris get into a motorhome, and they perform acts of kindness to inspire even more acts of kindness. I love marketing campaigns. They're grassroots. They get you one-on-one with the people that you're working with and dealing with, and they throw you into a space that really makes you face your audience, and
Yeah.
your audience can then truly give you feedback, and you take that feedback, and then you can either modify what you're doing or build on what you're doing. So turning the Million Acts of Kindness into a motorhome road trip, I'd say that was a good one. That was fun and exciting, and it was kind of gives you content on so many levels, right? You can write an adventure book about it now.
Exactly.
Creative, I think other creative things would be, when we talked to another client that we had a suggestion for her to actually take what was her original idea, which was, I would say, very small, and I can't tell you too much about it because it's her business, but she had an original idea of kind of publishing more books and herself, writing for herself, and we turned that into actually her becoming a publisher. And in the marketing of it, we talked about having events, so like a wine mixer to get to know people and know what their mission is, and connect with people that have information that needs to get out. So like CEOs, they've got great information that would be wonderful for the rest of us to learn from, but they don't have time to write a book. So we gave her an idea of having a kind of like a wine party, sponsored by a restaurant that could use business from CEOs and people that have money, so that she could connect with them and teach them about how she could be an author for them, so like a ghostwriter a little bit, and then she could publish the book and sell it. I think thinking outside the box and connecting with people more intimately is really the route of marketing for small businesses today, because there is so much noise. Yeah. How do you stand out from the noise? Yeah. And that's really, I would say that would be the number one kind of marketing strategy for small businesses. Is there's if you think about, if you had a brick and mortar, the internet is very expensive to drive people to your brick and mortar versus you walking around in your neighborhood. Does that make sense?
It totally does. Well, you know, it's sort of like when you go to conferences and you come home with your swag bag, and there's all kinds of paper in there, and people are putting pamphlets in there, and they've got their flyer in there. And I've spoken at a lot of conferences around the world, and I can't tell you how many times, as I'm packing up everything to head out from my speaking engagement, putting my materials away, what I see the audience doing is taking all the paper out of their swag bag and keeping the other stuff in there, what they perceive to be of value. And so we really, I just thought, boy, I don't want to be the person that's having all the paper left on the table. So we really have found different ways to, if we're going to leave something behind, that it actually is something we're leaving behind that has value for people, so that they're going to take it or use it. One of the things that we did this year that I thought was stellar was when we did the USB sticks, and we had our logo on the USB sticks in our webpage. But this has been a great, I've used them in so many ways. I use them when Julie is talking to a new potential client for me for a speaking organization or for speaking opportunity. She'll send out a couple copies of my book and the USB memory stick with different audios and videos I've created on the topic that company is interested in. So now, for me, as the marketing strategy, they get to experience me before they make the decision. So instead of them just going off the website and maybe looking at my social media, maybe reading a pamphlet about me, now they've got a couple of books, they've had a conversation with Julie, then they've had a conversation with me, and then this wonderful little gift goes in the mail for them that they hang on to. And that has closed the deal on so many speaking engagements, but it's also helped build relationships. People remember a book or a memory stick because they're seeing it. They don't necessarily remember the business card or the pamphlet. Those are still important to have, but I don't think we can rely on those as our primary marketing tools.
So here's a great DIY tip.
Awesome.
When we talk about marketing for our business, most of us cannot afford a Madison Avenue advertising agency that pays highly creative people who sit in rooms and come up with fun stuff to differentiate our product. So what I like to do is use things that are in my life to share sort of where the flow of the industry is going. So I go to the grocery store at least once a week, and I started seeing the Coca-Cola cans with people's names on them, and then with the like hug and give a kiss, and also the Snickers bars with things like grouchy, and the Snickers bar was like, you need to resolve your being grouchy or hungry by eating the Snickers, and then it's going to improve your mood. So when the big guys out there, the mega companies, are doing things that are talking about the human condition, I realize my business should be doing that too. So it's connecting on a human level. So like you were saying with value, I'm tired of somebody giving me something that I don't care about. I don't care about a piece of paper that's just shoving a service at me. I want to know, how is the service going to make my life easier? I don't have time to research someone's company to figure out if it's going to be a great fit for me. So as an individual, I always look at what's working in my life, what's drawing attention when I'm looking at something, and I will take, Coca-Cola and Snickers right off the bat were excellent. The other thing with Doritos and their Super Bowl competition for the Super Bowl commercial. When we really are looking at these big companies are always kind of talking about the human condition and humans connecting with humans. That is really what powerful marketing is how is your business connecting with humans?
Right. Beautiful. And we had a question come in. Somebody was in, the inquiry was, what are your thoughts about using crowdfunding to helping a newbie like myself be able to attend the Global Influence Summit? I'm thinking of using crowdfunding. I'm wondering what is best to call my campaign. It's for a greater purpose. Thanks. So what's your thoughts on that, Christy?
Well, so my question would be is, with attending the Global Influence Summit, if I were to do a crowdfunding campaign, what am I going to give back to the crowd? So am I an author that I have this great, do-it-yourself book, or maybe I've got a great fiction story that's going to make somebody feel amazing, or how to date, romance, I don't know, but if let's say I'm an author, then I would, go on crowdfunding and say, I need to get my start and get my book published, looking to generate funds to head to the Global Influence Summit. If you're a teacher, are you bringing it back to students? It kind of depends on what are you going to give back. Right. Anytime I do an ask, and this is sponsorships or ad dollars or asking somebody to be in my network, I always want to know what I'm giving back to them. I like things to be a mutual relationship. So if I'm asking for someone's money, like on crowdfunding, what am I going to give back?
Yeah, beautifully said. And I think that's the important part. And for those of you who haven't done crowdfunding before, they're a little beast of its own to really learn about. They can take a lot of time and energy to put into the campaign and setting it up right. We certainly learned that with one that we did. And then it takes a lot of time to stay on it because crowdfunding isn't something you just kind of post and then post every day. There's a lot of work. I had the pleasure of working with Dr. Sean Duperrin on her Project Forgive crowdfunding a few years ago. And it was a really big undertaking for the team that participated. Huge results, of course, and that was a much bigger campaign than the question that's asked. But I think what you've raised is really important, Christy, is that with crowdfunding, it could be such a cool idea to actually approach it that way. The key would be figuring out what is the give? What are you giving back to people? Because it's not just a relationship on crowdfunding where you're getting money to support something. There's an expectation that they're contributing to something good, which it sounds like this would be good and it would really help somebody. And then there's an expectation that they get something back in addition to that feeling of good or that contribution of good. Is that right?
Absolutely. It's the same thing on a recent episode of Shark Tank. There was a couple that came on, I think they were brother and sister, and they were pitching a business that it's similar to crowdfunding for sending students to school. Yeah. And really, one of the things that the Sharks all were asking is, how do we benefit from that? So outside of your family and friends, who you're essentially just asking for money, how does a business owner benefit from sending you to school? That's kind of like, there's not a whole lot of benefit. If you're going to school to learn a trade that would then help that business, yes, I get it. But to just randomly give money so that people can afford to go to school, I look at, hey, I paid for my education, still paying for it, by the way, but I paid for it. And there's value when we work to earn something. There's then value in it. So there is that fine line of what am I giving back for what I'm getting.
Right. And I'm really interested in the conversation of authors and speakers using crowdfunding, and it's just alerted me that this would be a really cool topic to have a masterclass on, just on crowdfunding and how we could use crowdfunding for our books and tours and things like that, because I know that lots of authors are now looking to do things like crowdfunding to get their book created, or if they have to travel to research a country or different places that the book would be talking about. I've seen authors do things like naming a chapter or a character, like part of the crowdfunding is if you support at a certain level, I'll name a character after you. There's so many innovative things that can be done, and I think it'd be super cool to have a webinar on that topic. What do you think, Christy? I'm gonna have you come on to that one too with some other folks on crowdfunding. So
okay, I want to.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Well, and it's also, let's say you did a crowdfunding for a book. I mean, what comes to my mind initially is I would love to see people pull themselves, out of welfare, out of financial hardship. So if it was creating a book that taught people how to do that from A to Z, from like $0 to $50,000 a year, that would be incredible. Like, that would be a great crowdfunding project. And then distribute the book to, shelters or groups like that.
Oh, yeah.
I think there's so much value that could come from that.
I do too. Okay, I'm going to make a public commitment. I'm hearing comments on the chat box. Please, yes, do that. Please do. Okay, I'm officially committing that we are going to now add a master class to this, and that will be on the topic of crowdfunding. And I'm really glad you raised that question about that, because it's a whole other part of marketing and sponsorship that we can't even get into today. Oh my gosh, Christy, this has been content rich. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been so wonderful. I love doing this.
Well, we're gonna do a couple more tips as we wind down. I want to let everybody know about the Global Influence Summit, which is coming up in less than 3 weeks. Yay! It's February 18th and 19th. For those of you that are on your web platform, you can see the registration page there. You can go to register at globalinfluencesummit.com. The price is going up next week. Right now it's $220, which is a great, great investment for 2 days of exceptional speakers. We have speakers like Sean Duperrin, who is a media expert, Natalie Ledwell, who teaches how to get your message to the masses, Laura Rubenstein, who speaks on social media, my favorite speaker on mindset, Harrison Klein. We have Deborah Poneman. I could listen to her for hours talk about success. And those are just a few of the many speakers that we have coming on the stage at the Global Influence Summit. So I really hope you'll come. There's loads of bonus gifts for people as they register. So we have speakers that are giving away their ebooks, like Teresa de Grosbois, who is co-hosting the event. We also have Sean Duperrin, Deborah Poneman, Marla Tabaka, and Marla is going to be on our masterclass as well. You'll just love listening to Marla. I really hope you'll join us in San Diego. It's going to be an exceptional event. And it's not just the speakers that we learn from. This was one of our speakers on the webinar series last week said, it's not just the speakers that you benefit from by being in an event like this. It's sitting in the room, meeting people like Christy, who's going to be there, and you've just heard her on this masterclass, and you now get to go and build relationship with Christy. She's a big influencer. Otherwise it would take you maybe forever to connect through social media and do the dating thing and all that. So you get the opportunity to meet people in the room, and that's what I think is going to be standout for Global Influence Summit. So I really hope you'll go. You can register by clicking on the link on your screen, or of course globalinfluencesummit.com. Christy, I'm hoping that when people are at the summit that they come and say, hey, I was on your webinar, so that you actually can connect with people that were listening to you today.
I would love to, absolutely. See if we can't talk even more details. I love being specific and helping people build marketing that really works for them.
Yeah, it's really, and that's the key, building marketing that works for you. Today was just a real high level, but it dive in deep kind of conversation about some of the specifics we need to know about marketing. So here's what I'm taking away. I am really taking away from you, Christy, that we need to be continuing to always look at, are we being specific? Do we know who our audience is? Always coming from that place of value, building relationships, not being afraid to make the ask, but making sure that you've done your research and built the relationship before you do the ask. The other piece that you reminded us of today that was so valuable, Christy, was thinking outside the box. How can we stand out in all this noise, as you referred to? If you had a final takeaway tip, or maybe a homework action, because I actually know, Christy, you love to give people homework. So if you had a homework action for people after participating in today's conversation, what should their homework be today?
I would define brand. What's your brand? Who are you? what value do you provide? Who do you want to connect with? You know, if you think about hosting a dinner party, who are you inviting to your dinner party? And then that's actually who your clients are or who your customers are, whether it's a product, a service. I would really do that, because so many times we go down a path of just trying to sell instead of really knowing who we are and what we want to do and what value we bring, and defining our brand and being really clear and really focused on that. All the way down to colors we're using. You know, that's really, I would say the homework is define your brand.
Define your brand, and then create your bullseye, because you can't do much until your brand is defined. We've got some comments coming in. Oh, hi, Lauren. Lauren says, thanks, ladies, from Lauren and Zachary. Hi, Lauren and Zachary. And Kelly says, thank you so much. This was great. I agree. It was a great conversation. I have a to-do list now. I always have a to-do list when I speak to you, Christy.
It's my educator days.
But, you know, it's a good to-do list, because this is the thing. When you work with experts, you get out of your head and you actually put the plans into action. It's what I hear all the time from entrepreneurs, is they have so many ideas and they have to step into action. So Christy's challenge for you all today is to step into action and define your brand. I want to thank all of you for joining us, whether you're listening live now or later to the replay. Thank you for taking this in. Stay in touch with us on Facebook. Ask our questions. Callie says, awesome. I'm totally inspired. Oh, I'm excited for you, Callie. And Christy, thank you so much for being here and sharing your wisdom and knowledge with us. This was amazing.
Thanks so much, and I'll see you in 3 weeks.
You bet. See you in San Diego, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.